morning. We talked about quarterbacks yesterday, which is an easy discussion, obviously, because you're talking about Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, who are two of the most talented in the country and arguably the two best quarterbacks in the nation. And now we shift to a position room that has some question marks for both teams. If I was going to talk about Clemson, I would say this is probably their biggest question mark on their team is the running back position. And then now LSU, the running the ball aspect has some questions, but then they now lack some depth in that room as well. And so the names in the room for LSU, obviously, Caden Durham, Caleb Jackson, Harlem Berry, and Jawan Johnson, who has made the shift back over. Clemson's running back room, Adam Randall, David Ezeyumame, that's it. Ezeyumame. Gideon Davidson and Jay Haynes. Those are the four backs in each room. Some numbers to talk about these guys. Caden Durham, last season, 141 rushes, 752 yards, 6 touchdowns. Caleb Jackson, 44 rushes, 150 yards. Jawan Johnson, 7 rushes, 14 yards. And obviously Harlem Berry is a true freshman. For Clemson, you got Randall, who had 4 rushes for 44 yards, no touchdowns. Ezeyumame with 10 rushes, 62 yards. Jay Haynes, 43 rushes, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Gideon Davidson is a true freshman as well. So those are the names and the numbers on the backs there. Clemson has some really good depth on offense at most positions, really besides this room. They've got some bodies. They've got some guys. But Adam Randall is their number one, and he is a converted wide receiver to running back. But he is 6'2", 235, so he's not a slouch. He is built like a running back. He's not this small kind of slender guy in the backfield that you're going to expect to be a receiver out of the backfield. He's going to be able to tote the rock. But Christian, you watched some Adam Randall film.
We have in the doc, Lloyd. I don't know if you saw it. There's his receiving highlights.
Different when you're the guy as opposed to coming off
but
the
he
bench.
runs the ball hard. I mean, you'll see it early. He's not easy to tackle, and this is on very few receptions last year, and I think maybe the year before a little bit. But he didn't get much run at receiver. Now he's in the running back room, and he fights for every yard, and you'll see in a minute or so.
Yeah, he didn't get as much opportunity at receiver, and they have a deep wide receiver room, so rightfully so. But he makes the switch to running back out of necessity because they needed bodies there. But you can see he's got a stocky build. He's a bigger guy, 6'2", 235.
I'd imagine he put on weight since this clip too.
Yeah, he's probably bulked up a little bit just to play the position. And so you would assume when you have a wide receiver turn running back, maybe they're not going to be as strong and stout. But he's not no slouch. He's put together, and it's going to be in fall camp. Because I think a lot of people expected, from what I read, Clemson's running back room to be kind of like a committee. Like they were going to run by committee with all 4 of those guys. But Randall's kind of gone out there and just grabbed a hold of that starting job, and he's going to be the bell cow back. So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. But that's the biggest question mark for Clemson is this running back position, and it obviously starts with Adam Randall, who, like I said, last season rushing, he had 4 rushes, 44 yards, and that was all in one game. So those 4 rushes for 44 yards were against Texas in the CFP last year, and that's what started the whole conversation of transitioning from wide receiver to running back. So there is Adam Randall, the new running back for Clemson as he transitions from wide receiver. The other guys in that room, Ezeyumame, 6 foot, 215, played in some small games last year. He had 5 rushes, 33 yards versus App State, 3 rushes, 27 yards versus Citadel. He's a true running back. He's put together. He's not an elite athlete, but he is talented. He did have an injury at the end of his high school career, and he's also a two-way guy. He can receive out of the backfield. He played some tight end in high school. The next one to me is the one to put a star next to for Clemson's running back room. Obviously, Adam Randall is the guy. He's going to be their main focus and their number one back. But Gideon Davidson is a true freshman, and he was the number 4 running back in the country last year. Obviously, Harlem Berry was number 1. But Gideon was the number 4 running back in the country. He was 6 foot. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He was the National Junior of the Year back in 2023. Was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Virginia. He's between the tackles type of a runner. He's put together. He's got really good patience and vision from everything I read on him. To me, this is who they are banking on. Maybe not for this season.
Or maybe not just for this game.
And maybe not for this game, but Gideon Davidson, I think for them, one is obviously the future. But their hope, he to me is the one where he could be a Caden Durham type of guy last year, where you maybe have some question marks around your running back room, and then you have Caden Durham in game number 3, grab a hold of that job and win it and run it as a true freshman. That's who I think Gideon Davidson could be for Clemson. Maybe not game 1, but as the season continues. And then Jay Haynes is their most experienced, with quotes, running back on the team. He's 5'11", 195. Against NC State last year, he had 8 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. He had 5 carries for 118 versus the Citadel, 5 rushes for 15 yards versus SMU, and he ended up leaving with a knee injury. This is Gideon Davidson here. He was the number 4 running back in the country last season, coming out of high school, and he's put together, talented. He was a 4-star, and like I said, he was number 4. Barry was obviously number 1. Coming out of high school last season. And this to me is their Caden Durham type of guy, where he could just grab a hold of this job if the Randall experiment doesn't work out. That's that is vision.
Yeah.
You can't teach that. You're born with this. The ability to be this patient, kind of find the crease, hit the hole later. He's a good back. A very, very talented running back. He's a true freshman, so we'll see what the opportunities look like in week 1 in that big of a game. But I think at some point this season, Clemson's going to be banking on Gideon Davidson and potentially interesting huddle angle here and what he could do for them if the Randall experiment doesn't work out. Obviously, their focus is going to be making this Adam Randall deal work. And hopefully, and their hope is going to be make that happen. I
did a little research on Adam Randall.
What you got?
Runs a 4.45, so they say.
Okay.
At 6'2", 235. Clocked at 4.45. Now that's Clemson's clocking, not NFL clocking. So it could be a little bit of propaganda there, but I would say if we're gonna talk running backs, we probably have to take this for their word.
Yeah, and me and you kind of disagree a little bit on the Randall front. I think you're much more impressed with him.
Yeah.
Which I'm not impressed with him. I guess I put a little bit more stock on the fact that it's going to be his first kind of year taking handoffs and running through the tackles and having to do the different jobs that it takes to be a running back.
I think the only weakness we would see from him, because he's so big, he's 6'2", 235, is his vision and his pass blocking. Now, yeah. I'd imagine his pass blocking is kind of up to speed, being the starting back for this long. I feel like Clemson would have him up to speed, but like Caleb Jackson, his vision might not all be there. But you saw in the wide receiver film, I mean, he would probably look better as a running back. I think the switch being made, that probably should have been made his freshman year, because clearly he wasn't the best wide receiver if he wasn't getting touches as a junior. He's a senior now. And he runs well. When he would get the ball in space against the slant he ran versus Miami we saw earlier, I mean, he had that breakaway speed. He got ankle tackled, but, I mean, he split 2 safeties and almost took it to the house. So,
yeah, no, I mean, he has the build of a running back, and all the reports coming out of camp, our guy Morgan Thomas over there at Locked On Clemson, our friend, he said that he would be, the reports out of camp have been positive. He broke off a really long 50, 60-yard run at their scrimmage at the end of last week. According to Dabo Swinney. Mm-hmm. But I'm somewhat on BD's side where, why will he last? I'm just going to be very much of a prove it to me, I'm high on this Clemson team, but at the running back spot, you're having to commit everything to a wide receiver swap over to running back. It just does not instill much intimidation to me. You're making a guy swap from position he's played for 3 or 4 years at your university to now being a running back. And I see what they see. I get it. 6'2", 235. He's good with the football in his hands. He's got the ability to be a good running back. But you're going into a game against a a top-tier program in LSU with an experiment in the backfield. Like,
Yeah.
that to me is my biggest knock against Clemson right now, is the fact that they have an experiment in the backfield going into this first game.
I think this is the best time to see Adam Randall too. First game of the season.
Right.
The experiment
They're
is
trying
fresh.
to figure it out.
There's going to be a lot of testing going on, I feel like, with different types of runs. I would advise Clemson to run their draw plays with that guy Gideon, because his vision is clearly elite.
Yeah.
Adam Randall, we'll see.
No, I'm with you. I think Davidson is probably not hopeful for their hopes will be their answer as the season goes on. I don't think that'll happen in game one. Randall's going to be their hope. I think the Eziomame guy will get an opportunity as well. He had some good games last season, like I said, 5 for 33 against App State. He'll get the backup reps, but I think at some point it'll be Davidson. It's going to be Randall against LSU, and we'll just kind of see how that works out for him.
If you put the shoe on the other foot, and this was LSU and you were talking about an experiment at running back, essentially.
Juwan Johnson was your starter.
Right. And that's where I rest my kind of eases my mind, I guess, in a sense of going against Clemson whenever you have a oft-injured former wide receiver coming into play running back with a running backs coach who hasn't really been a running backs coach for very long. He was a running back in C.J. Spiller. But what C.J. Spiller did can't really be taught either. Like, he played a kind of a different style of football than everybody else. But so you have a kind of an unproven running back room with with C.J. Spiller being more of a player than a coach, and then you have a transition from wide receiver to running back. If this was LSU, this would have been highlighted throughout camp as to who are they going to give the ball to? Like,
right.
How many times are you going to let Nussmeier drop back? And that's where I think you kind of have to put Cade Klubnik in the running back room, because I think he's going to get 15 to 18 touches in terms of trying to probably 12 to 15 designed, and then whatever he does outside the pocket. But he's going to be maybe your, if not the leading rusher, one of your leading rushers if you're Clemson, like in terms of just getting him in space and trying to set up a run game. It's probably be with Cade Klubnik before anybody else.
Yeah.
No, I'm with
That's
you.
who you would trust the most.
And we talked about it yesterday. Like, the scripted plays, the first drive, they are going to try to run Cade Klubnik to see, like, they're going to test it out, see if it works.
I think another aspect to this is their passing game with the running back. Adam Randall was a receiver.
Right.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. No. How are they going to attack? You know, the Eziomame guy, the backup, was a tight end in high school as well as a running back. So he obviously is talented enough to catch out of the backfield. But I really like that point of the Klubnik standpoint, because they are going to do it. Like, the first 3 plays, I guarantee you, a Klubnik design run.
Oh, no doubt.
Like, I can just, like, why wouldn't they? If they didn't, they would be stupid. Like, LSU's been gashed and gashed and gashed by read options, quarterback power, quarterback draw, all these different things with Milroe, Marcel Reed, go down the list. Why wouldn't, with as good of a runner as Klubnik is, why would you not? And so I think I agree with Lloyd. You have to group Klubnik in with this group, but just strictly from the running back perspective, I'm not intimidated by the Clemson running back room, because just the same point, like, they have an experiment back there in Randall that they're going to have to try and figure out and see if it works, and they're going to be seeing if it works against LSU and this LSU defensive front that's been really, really good through camp at this point.
Yeah, because we've gone through a lot of this entire prep for, I guess, week 1 and the start of the season has been very much intently focused on LSU. Once you start diving into a little bit of what Clemson has to offer, I think it becomes more and more evident that maybe LSU can check some more boxes than what you would imagine. Like, because when you start looking at the running back room, if you were watching as intently as we were watching LSU, we'd be like, this would be a huge question mark. Like, what are you going to do to be able to run the football if it's not Cade Klubnik? And I think that you saw this in practice yesterday, where they were running a lot of defenses to prepare for Clemson that were centered around stopping the quarterback, stopping quarterback run, stopping quarterback power. So it's definitely on LSU's mind as to what they know that they are not very good at. But once you lose the threat of a running back and it just becomes you can focus intently on Cade Klubnik,
I
think that's advantage LSU because of everything you said, the defensive line, the linebacker room. Like, you have
front seven.
You've got a front 7 that can compete with anybody up to this point. Obviously, you haven't seen it against another version of a football team. You've only seen it against LSU, but there's plenty of sample size out there from last year of what Weeks can do, of what Harold Perkins has done in his career. And then you've seen Bernard Gooden step up and be like a major player.
Running back room, because that's the next conversation as well. Running back room, because that's the next conversation as well. Landon Barone, first off, says, I listened to a Clemson media guy the other day, had an interesting thing you mentioned about Randall. And I wouldn't, they're going to, they're going to do things like that, Landon, where they motion them out, see what LSU's in. If a linebacker stays with them, where they motion them out, see what LSU's in. If a linebacker stays with them, what they do. You talk about the LSU running back room, it's kind of Caden Durham, and then everyone else. Like he's going to be the guy getting the majority of the carries. He's the most proven. You saw it last year how talented he is as an athlete. And then at the end of spring camp, he had that ankle sprain to wrap up spring football. So has been a little shaken up in his time at LSU, and we'll see kind of how that ends up panning out this season. Next in the room would be Caleb Jackson, 6 foot, 235. Last season, like I said, 44 carries, 150 yards, no touchdowns, which is a drop-off from 2023, where he had 165 yards and 4 touchdowns on 31 carries. And to me, what I wrote next to Caleb Jackson were 2 words. I wrote momentum, because we've talked about it. You want momentum to be kind of what you get with Caleb Jackson. You want him to have momentum so that it's not a stop and go and a stop and go. He's a bowling ball you want to get moving. And on top of that, I said need. He's a change of pace back. You know, like he is different than Caden Durham. He's going to be different than Harlan Berry. He's what you need when you need a change of pace. He's not going to run the 4-3, 4-4, whatever, the 4-3 that Caden Durham runs or Harlan Berry runs. He's going to be bigger, stronger, a harder runner of the football, more physical, between the tackles type back. He's 6 foot, 234. He is that change of pace back that LSU needs, and they're going to need somebody behind Caden to really step up. And next to Caleb Jackson, I said elite size times speed. When you talk about the combination of size and speed, Caleb Jackson is elite in that standpoint. Next up will be Harlan Berry, 5'11", 190. The number 1 running back in the country last season, this true freshman on LSU's roster. I'm going to read y'all some of these high school stats he's got from St. Martin's. 8,571 rushing yards in his 4 years at St. Martin's. He had 2,000 rushing yards every single season. So 8,571, 142 touchdowns. Then he also had 52 catches for 888 yards and 12 touchdowns. So well over 150 touchdowns. He had 154 total touchdowns in his time, and over 9,000 all-purpose yards in high school. The word I wrote next to him is dynamic. He is an absolute dynamic athlete, and he's special. Like if you go back and you watch that high school film, when he gets the ball in his hand, he's got elite burst. Charles Power said he's got effortless movement. Like he just looks different. And he's got the ability to change direction on a dime. In spring 2024, he had 100-meter dash times of a 10.76 and a 10.98, which is pretty special. Just looks a little different when you've got next to him Caden Durham, who's got his PR of a 10.28 in the 100-meter dash, which is just unbelievable.
Moving.
But Harlan Berry is going to get opportunities this season. Like, I talked about Gideon Davidson, the true freshman for Clemson. I think Harlan Berry's going to get more opportunities and earlier opportunities than Davidson does because LSU needs somebody to take the weight off of Durham's shoulders. And so Caleb Jackson's going to have the opportunity. Harlan Berry's going to have the opportunity. But on top of that, Harlan Berry's the ultimate weapon. Like, the word I wrote next to him is size. He's got to bulk up a little bit. That's been the major concern with him getting. He's got 4.5 speed. He's got burst. He's an extremely 5 speed. He's got burst. He's an extremely good athlete. Like I said, 6 foot 210, so he's not because of Durham, Jackson, Berry, and Johnson. It's because of Durham, Jackson, Berry, and Johnson. It's can LSU run the football because of their ability to scheme it right for the offensive line to block it up. All of these things that play a factor in what the running game looks like. It doesn't have to do with these 4 guys, in my opinion. It has to do with the scheme around it and can they make things work for Durham to be successful, but also Jackson. And then mix Berry into the bunch to be successful. And I think they're going to use Jawan Johnson as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what it continues to look like from a running back perspective for LSU. But they've got the guys. To me, when you talk about the question marks around running back for these 2 teams, one team in Clemson, the question marks are around the guys in the room. That's not the question marks for LSU. It's around the scheme and how they make it work. And I have more confidence in the LSU running back room after looking at both than Clemson because I'd rather be worried about scheme than be worried about the players in the room. And I think with Clemson right now, that's where it's at. You have a wide receiver turned running back as your bell cow versus Caden Durham, who was on a preseason award watch lists and was one of the best running backs in the SEC last year. And I think both teams are going to have to consider scheme and get that figured out.